Hafaday. The Committee on Rules hereby convenes this meeting. For the record, today is Thursday, May 17th, 2018, and the time is now 5:05 p.m. Our core staff, Ms. Tina Lichtel, will now call the roll of members.
Legislative Secretary Regine Bisco-Lee.
Gaigia.
Senator Tom Atta. Speaker B.J. Cruz. Vice Speaker Therese Terlahi. Senator Frank Uggan. Senator Talina Cruz Nelson. Senator Dennis G. Rodriguez Jr. Senator Joe S. San Augustine. Senator Michael Sinicolas. Senator James Espaldon. Senator Mary Camacho Torres. Madam Chair, there is a quorum.
Does the chair hear a motion to excuse members not present? Moved by Senator Camacho Torres, seconded by Senator Uggan. Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. I'll also give you a few minutes to look over our minutes for our April 18th, 2018 meeting, which can be found in your packets. And then the chair will entertain a motion to ratify the minutes. There's been a motion to ratify by Senator Uggan, seconded by Senator San Augustine. Are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. And we'll move on to core business and the Legislative Secretary's report. The Legislative Secretary report to date is as follows. 20 appointments submitted by the governor are pending. I'd like to state for the record that 7 appointments have met their potential due date, and they are Patrick L. Hines, Public at-Large Member, Government of Guam Retirement Fund, Board of Trustees; Dr. Robert Haddock, Veterinary Representative on the Guam Board of Allied Health Examiners; Jonathan R. Kwan, Magistrate by Chief Justice Catherine A. Merriman; Dr. Hugh T. Campus, Member, Guam Memorial Hospital Board of Trustees; Dr. Kier Ramani, Member, Guam Board of Medical Examiners; Didi S. Camacho, Member, A.B. Wanpat International Airport Authority Board of Directors; and Catherine C. Scrow, Member, A.B. Wanpat International Airport Authority Board of Directors. The committees are aware of these potential due dates. 13 zone changes were transmitted by the governor, and all have been approved by the governor's office. 12 proposed rules and regulations have been submitted thus far. 2 of these are currently going through the AAA process with their respective committees to comply with Public Law 34-32. For more information, you can visit our website at guamlegislature.org. And now we'll move on to our session agenda. And before proceeding, I just want to note for the record that only 1 nomination, 1 rule and regulations committee report, and 2 bills met our core deadline, which was actually extended. Although it is a committee member's prerogative to move bills onto the session agenda in this meeting, notwithstanding the House rules, I want to note that these latest bills and their committee reports may not be uploaded online for the public to review adequately before session. Adhering to our rules and deadlines ensures better transparency, community engagement, and accountability in our process. I will reserve the right to object or rule out of order any items moved onto the agenda outside of our rules and deadlines in this meeting or on the floor. Additionally, I'd like to reiterate a memo that has been circulated this week to members clarifying placement of bills back on the agenda that have previously been sent back to your committees from the session floor. Going forward, bills that have been previously sent back to the Committee of Jurisdiction from the session floor will require a secondary committee report. This will not be new for members because this is generally done already if a secondary hearing was conducted. If changes were made to the bill in committee or any supplemental documentation was needed to be added or provided to the original committee report. As a new policy to help tighten up our legislative process, if a standing committee makes no changes to a bill that was sent back, then a letter from the standing committee memorializing that a bill being reported out again from the committee with no further changes must be sent to the Committee on Rules prior to that bill being placed on our session agenda. That being said, the committee reports for the following items have been duly filed with the Committee on Rules. So the bills cleared for the session agenda are all of the old business that's listed in your agendas for today, including 2 bills that were set aside in our last session. That's Bill number 159 and Bill 160, both authored by Senator Joe San Augustine, as well as the new business Bill number 227-34, Luis B. Muña, relative to breast cancer screening coverage and health insurance benefit plans sold on Guam and by Medicaid and the Medically Indigent Program, MIP. Bill number 268-34 COR, as corrected by the prime sponsor and amended by the Committee on Environment, Land, Agriculture, and Procurement Reform, introduced by Senator Regine Bisco-Lee, an act to add a new Chapter 54B to Title 10, Guam Code Annotated, relative to banning single-use carryout bags provided to consumers by retail establishments on Guam, and to cite this act as the Choose to Reuse Mungama Adzek e-Plastic of 2018, as well as the nomination of Michael Edie Uggan, District Director, the Southern Guam Soil and Water Conservation District Board. Are there any motions to place these items on session agenda? Senator San Nicolas, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have 3 items I would like to move for placement on session agenda. These are, all 3 of them are substantive resolutions that have had public hearings and have been reported out by myself as the author and the individual who held the public hearings. The first I'd like to move is Resolution 310-34. This is relative to respectfully petitioning the United States Congress pursuant to 48 U.S.C. Section 1423K to enact legislation amending the Organic Act of Guam to include a provision of Guam Public Law 26-74 for the government of Guam to deposit a required percentage of tax collections into the Guam Income Tax Refund Efficient Payment Trust Fund for the payment of income tax refunds, and that any such amendment be referenced as the Vicente C. Pangilinan Amendment.
Senator San Nicolas has moved that Resolution 310 be added to our session agenda. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Senator Uggan. Any objections? There's been an objection. Would you like to speak on it? There's been an objection, so we'll need a vote on moving Resolution 310 onto the session agenda. All in favor? Motion carries. Senator San Nicolas.
Thank you, colleagues. Another motion on Resolution number 311-34, relative to respectfully petitioning the United States Congress pursuant to 48 U.S.C. Section 1423K to enact legislation amending the Organic Act of Guam to include a provision of Guam Public Law 24-222 that any provision enacted and administered under the authority of the government of Guam which establishes a locally enacted tax or increases a locally enacted tax must be ratified by a majority of votes cast in a general election with allowances for a state of emergency if so ratified by a 2/3 vote of the Guam legislature. And just to clarify, Madam Chair, I understand that these resolutions aren't necessarily the easiest topics to be bringing up, but at the very least, they should be afforded an opportunity to be discussed and deliberated on the floor. And I'm asking my colleagues for, at the very least, the opportunity to have those discussions and deliberations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
This resolution was previously sent back to committee. It's made its way onto the floor and was sent back to committee. Is that correct?
No, Madam Chair, these resolutions were never placed onto the session agenda. I've had the hearings, but I've been waiting for the opportune time to be able to make the motions.
And can you just repeat the resolution number?
Resolution 311-34.
Do I hear a second? Yeah.
Madam Chair, I understand that there is some uncertainty with respect to whether or not the committee report has been filed. To my knowledge, it has been. However, in deference to the committee, I would like to reserve and respectfully request my colleagues' support to move this resolution on the floor during session if there isn't any, if it needs to be put off until that time. But just the reason is there's uncertainty as to whether or not the committee report has been filed. To my understanding, I know that Resolution 311 and 312 were both heard on the same day, and the committee reports were routed on the same day. Whether or not they were uploaded onto the website, I'm not sure. That's not my area anymore. But I can defer and.
Senator St. Nicholas, it appears that Resolution 311 was not heard on the same day as the other two. It was heard apparently on a separate day, and we do not have the committee report for that resolution. So yeah, if you could clarify and get back to the Committee on Rules, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to be very clear, I specifically remember 311 and 312 being heard on the same day because it had to do with an Organic Act amendment to not raise taxes and an Organic Act amendment to not take on additional public debt. And those are two subjects that were pertinent, and that's why I heard them on the same day. The one that had a separate hearing, I believe, was the tax refund resolution, which was 310. But I'm getting a message here from my staff, Madam Chair, that we did file the committee report on Resolution 311. So if we can get clarification, and I'll also ask them to send a copy down. And if we have to recess then in order to get that, because I want to make sure that whatever we've done on my end is being accounted for. Yes. Okay, so pending the 311 documentation, I'd like to also make a motion to place Resolution 312-34 on the session agenda. And this is relative to respectfully petitioning the United States Congress pursuant to 48 U.S.C. 1423K to enact legislation amending the Organic Act of Guam to include a provision of Guam Public Law 24-222 such that any provision enacted by the government of Guam which increases public indebtedness of the government of Guam by at least $25 million backed by the full faith and credit of the government of Guam must be approved by a majority of votes cast in an election before any such borrowing may be undertaken with allowances for a state of emergency if so ratified by a 2/3 vote of the Guam legislature.
Resolution number 312 has been moved by Senator San Nicolas. Do I hear a second? Second. Seconded by Senator Uggan. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator San Nicolas.
All I have left, Madam Chair, is Resolution 311. So if I may, I'll respectfully pass at this time. And
We checked the log one more time, and Resolution 310 and 312 both had committee reports that were submitted, but there was no committee report submitted for 311 in our log.
I'm having my staff research too, because if you look at 311 and 312, they both reference Public Law 24-222 as the basis for why they were heard, or I'm sorry, why they were introduced. And so, to my understanding, we heard them both on the same day.
Produce the committee report that was signed off from our office?
Sure.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Espaldon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move to place Bill number 227-34 on the session agenda. And this is an act to add a new section 181003 to Article 10, Chapter 18, Title 22 of the Guam Code, and to repeal subsection E of Section 4301, Article 3, Chapter 4, Title 4, relative to breast cancer screening coverage and health insurance and benefit plans sold on Guam and by Medicaid and the Medically Indigent Program. That was sponsored, the bill is sponsored by Senator Luis B. Muña, Senator Nelson, Senator Talahi, Senator Torres, and Senator Lee.
There's been a motion to place Bill 227 on the session agenda by Senator Espaldon. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Speaker Cruz. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Espaldon.
Thank you. That's all I have for now, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Ada, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to place the nomination of Mr. Michael D. Uggan on the agenda to serve as Director of the Southern Guam Soil and Water Conservation District.
There's been a motion by Senator Ada to place the nomination of Michael Uggan onto the session agenda. It's been seconded by Speaker Cruz. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries.
Now, Bill 169, of course, is still under old business, so I don't need to move. I mean, that'll be on the agenda, correct? Or do I need to make that motion?
Please make the motion.
Okay, so I move to place Bill 169-34. It's an act relative to tax exemptions for 100% disabled veterans, surviving spouses, legal guardians, and Gold Star spouses and parents. Now, I know that when we mention the word tax exemptions, especially during this time, it's probably raising the hair on many of folks. But many of these people either are receiving tax breaks already under the 80% rule, and there's really not that many 100% disabled veterans. So I would like to add that bill onto the agenda.
Thank you, Senator. There's been a motion to add Bill 169 onto the session agenda, moved by Senator Ada, seconded by Senator Uggan. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Ada?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate the fact that you, I did receive your memo yesterday about, the disposition of bills that are sent back to committee. And the fact that I admittedly missed the window by, I think, a few hours on the submittal of the committee report for Bill 215. Nonetheless, and respectfully, I would move to place Bill 215-34 on the agenda, and this bill is relative to creating a Guam Ancestral Lands Commission Survey, Infrastructure, and Development Fund from the lease proceeds of leases of Apra Harbor Reservation and Parcel 215, and to authorize uses of this fund. What this would do if we put, and timing is important for this bill, because then it would allow the Ancestral Lands Commission to fund its own operations, which right now is being paid for out of general fund to the tune of about $90,000 a year. And there is no reason why it should not be paying for its own operations out of its proceeds. And so if this bill gets favorably acted upon, that certainly frees up $90,000 at least from the general fund. So again, notwithstanding the committee's desires to, if you miss the window, you know, bill number 215.
Okay. I'll have to rule that motion out of order, and if the committee would like to overrule the chair and allow the notwithstanding motion to bypass the rules, you can do so by a vote of 8.
Well, Madam Chair, I would not move to overrule the chair. I'll just make the motion as a majority leader on the floor during session to make that withstanding motion.
Thank you. Senator Atta?
That's it. I'm done. Thank you.
Speaker Cruz, you're recognized.
Guess you have only one other bill on your approved list. Move 268.
Bill 268.
Your plastics bill.
It's been moved by Speaker Cruz. Any second? Seconded by Senator San Augustine. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. And we'll now, Senator San Augustine.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move, because it's listed there, Bill 159. It was set aside from the last session only because of the number of bills we had. And that's an act to amend Section 62 of Article 1, Chapter 6, Division 2 of Title 17, Guam Code Annotated, relative to extending the duty to send children to school from the age of 16 years to the age of 18 years.
It was sent back to committee. It was on our previous agenda, and it was sent.
It was just passed.
I'm sorry, it was passed on file, and so we neglected to put it on the old business, but it does make the committee report was duly filed. So it's Bill 159 has been moved by Senator San Augustine and seconded by Speaker Cruz. Any objection to placing it on the session agenda? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator San Augustine.
Also, Bill 160-34, COR, an act to amend subsection I-13 of Section 715, Chapter 7 of Title 1, Guam Code Annotated, relative to converting the 180 instructional days required each school year by the Department of Education to 900 instructional hours, converting the 180 to hours. That was also set aside, passed in the last session.
This is Bill 160 as introduced, or?
Beg your pardon?
As introduced, or was it amended in committee, or?
I think it was amended. I'm just, as reported out by committee.
Bill 160, as reported out by the committee, has been moved by Senator San Augustine, seconded by Senator Uggan. Any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator San Augustine. Okay. We'll now move to the extension of remarks.
Well, yeah, Madam Chair, I do have a resolution that I'm trying to get clarified for this meeting. So prior to adjournment, if we could recess for a few more minutes until I can, thank you. Can I just clarify? Just to clarify, Madam Chair, just for the record, given the circumstances, we'll just, with the indulgence of the body, we'll be moving Resolution 311 as a notwithstanding motion on the floor for session agenda as an advance notice. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any further discussion on an extension of remarks? If not, there's been a motion to adjourn. Seconded by, or moved by Senator Uggin, seconded by Senator San Agustin. And if there's no objection, the Committee on Rules hereby adjourns this meeting at 5:45 p.m. Thank you for your attendance, and Suzus Masi.